How do you up-level this story? This is how you told the story. You're like, oh, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Right? That that is not. I mean, your story is so great that you're almost not doing it justice by telling it that way. Do you know what I mean? I want you to draw a clear picture for the audience of the story. And the main story is the event that happened at your work. Okay? All the stuff that you actually went about in the beginning, you need to shorten that into like 10 seconds because that's not the story. That's just a setup. You know what I mean? So the way I would start is like this. You know, like I wanted to play music my whole life, but I never did it because I'm like, oh, that's useless. I'm not going to find a job in, right? So I never actually did it. I just pushed it away until COVID happened and I started practicing every day. I got a little better. But even then I felt like, oh shit, I'm not good. This is what, am I wasting my time trying to do this? I suck. But because I learned like little things like my favorite song, how to play this song, how to play my Stairway to Heaven. So I kept doing it. Like, you see what I just did? I put I drew a picture of, right? Like, oh, like, you know, you playing Stairway to Seven or something like that, right? So done. Book backstory's done. Now don't, like, we need to get there quickly. We need to jump into the story quickly because otherwise people are like, okay, what's going? Okay, that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? Oh, this happened, and then I felt like this. Okay, nobody gives a shit. Okay, and then I would say so I would tell her like that. Like, this is yes, I've always wanted to blah, 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 but I suppressed myself, and I felt like I was like, this is pointless because like other people my age are so much better than me. Until one day, that's a key phrase. Until one day, you have to have you have to have like a clear. Remember what I always say is how do you build suspense? How do I keep them? How do I keep them listening throughout the whole thing? Like, right? How do you hook them? Is you need constant sense of mystery. Every time you raise a question, every time you answer a question, you have to raise another one immediately. So blah, 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 until one day, then people are gonna be like, "Oh, what happened?" Right now it's mystery. Okay, what happened? I want to know. Until one day, I was sitting in my office and I got this email. Subject, blah 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 blah. I open it, and you know, do you see? Instead of saying it like, oh, until like this, you know, the leader of my organization like decided to leave, or that does, you're not drawing a picture for them. That's not dramatic. What you have to do is until one day I got to work. Boom, the subject line, boom, there, and then it read this, and then you can explain, yeah, this is the leader that's, you know, that inspired me. I was sad to see him leave, blah blah blah. And then when you tell the story of you going in and performing, like, oh, I performed, and then, you know, like, instead of describing what happened, I mean, instead of just saying what happened, like literally draw the picture of the room for them. Like, I want to feel like I'm there with you. So I walked up with my guitar. I sat down. My heart was beating. I see these people just all staring at me like a deer without headlights. And I start playing. And 5-10 seconds into it, all that anxiety went away. All of it, and I just connected, and I just saw, and I looked over and I saw tears in this person's eye, and I look over here and I see this, and blah, 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 and I just want you to really, really, really draw a picture of that moment, so I can feel it. Do you know what I mean? And then say, and then I learned something that day. So once you do that, people are gonna be like, what did you learn? Like, you see what I'm doing? I'm constantly raising questions. Like, as soon as I answer, I raise a question. As soon as I answer that, I raise another question, right? And at the end, maybe just, you know, and then like the final punchline has to be your lesson. So you really, really need to dig into the lesson and figure out figure out what the real lesson is for you, or the real lesson that you want to teach, and then end it like that. Last week's podcast, what I talked about is, in order to do that, you have to ask yourself 3 questions, because there's a difference between storytelling, to practice storytelling for myself, right? So that I can discover something about myself, versus storytelling to the others, like actually storytelling, right? If you're storytelling to the other, like if you want to polish this, then tell it for others. What you have to do is, first, you have to ask these 3 questions. First, who is this story for?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you know?
No, not exactly.
You see, right away you get stuck, right? Yeah. So when you tell the story for other people, that's the difference between telling a story for yourself versus other. Because when you tell a story for yourself, it's for self-discovery. And once you've learned that, okay, now I want to teach this lesson to these people, and I want to break their myth about this. So the 3 questions is, who is this for? What is the lesson you're teaching there? And what is the myth or the belief that you're breaking?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have these 3 things, then it'll become crystal clear. And I'll tell you this, your story actually has multiple lessons. So depending on who you tell it to and what you're trying to teach, what you're trying to break, what belief you're trying to break, you might tell the story slightly differently. And that's okay. You know?
Yeah. That's a lot.
So yeah, I guess to
Thank you.
recap, I would say, to really up-level that story, number 1, clearly draw a picture of what that looks like. And one of the things that we talk about in Night Owl Nation is show, don't tell, right? So I give that example of like, oh, I used to be so bad at managing money. Like I would, I was like always spending money, and I was always broke, right? Like, yeah, that works. But if you say like, oh, I would always, like, when I get paid, I would always take my friends out to drinks and dinner, spend all my money, and then for the next 2 weeks, I just eat ramen noodle waiting for my next paycheck. And then when I get a paycheck again, I do it again. And now, when I draw a picture of what that looks like, it's so surreal. There's like so many nuances that they're gonna feel.